in a sense, there are things hidden, if you want, behind the regret, important things. Now, it takes a bit of work to uncover them, because a lot of times all we see is the regret. We don't go underneath. We don't look underneath. We have to do the work of going underneath. The best way to say it is like this. There is kind of like a sweet spot when it comes to regret. We don't want to deny feelings that we have about periods in our life that were hard or difficult, places where we made mistakes or we were injured or injured someone else. We don't want to deny that. We do need to confront that, right? But likewise, we don't want to freeze in our focus on them. Neither of those will bring us towards that acceptance that we need. Neither of those will actually tell us the truth about who we are in the lives that we have been living, okay? So finding this kind of sweet spot is the real initiation, right? And if we can do this, we open up space for more love, more gratitude, more being present with the people that are important to us, more compassion, more self-acceptance, okay? This is the business of the second half of life, to deepen rather than to despair. Lao Tzu said, a man's strengths and weaknesses flow from the same well. Okay, so that's very interesting, isn't it? I think something that is intimately connected to this process of deepening rather than despairing is to understand this. To understand that some of the things that we carry and that hurt us the most are there because of our greatest strengths, because of our biggest character strengths. And we're going to talk more about that in a minute. So what is this unfinished business stuff, and what is this unlived life that we're speaking about? I think in a nutshell, it's the answer to the statement, in another life, I may have, okay, and you can fill in the blank. You can probably pick a few things, right? Or it could be the answer to the statement, if I was going to live my life again, there are a few things I would change, ... And what would those things be? I think most of our unfinished business or our unlived life probably could fall into those two sentences, right? Now, before we talk about the categories that those might fall under, I also want you to think about the inverse too. So we will think about the things that we would change and the things that we might have done differently or in another life. But I want you to think about, for a second, what are the things that you wouldn't change, right? Because there's usually a lot of those too. And sometimes that's a mixed bag, isn't it? A lot of times tangled up together are the things that we wish had been different, coupled in there with the things that we wouldn't change. Isn't that funny? It's not simple, is it? For example, I can remember talking to a woman who objectively had a very difficult marriage for 30 years. This was an objectively very difficult marriage, and she came into later midlife and decided it was going to be time for a divorce. They both decided. There was a lot of wounding had occurred, for both of them. And she went through a very difficult time as she was negotiating that. There was a ton of regret. Why did I get married? Now I'm divorced. I never saw myself as a divorced woman. That's not what I wanted. There's massive changes to be negotiating in midlife. Very unsettling for her. And she had to do a lot of work around that, a lot of thinking. And she came to a place that I found very interesting. Because as she went back and thought about herself at the start when she decided to get married in the beginning, she said, something I wouldn't change is I wouldn't actually change the part of me that decided to get married. So she has regrets about the marriage, yes, and the things that occurred, but she wouldn't change the part of herself that decided to get married. And I asked her about that because I was wondering about that. I found that very interesting. She said, there was a part of me even at the time that knew that this marriage was going to be a risk. She said, I sensed that. Intuitively, I knew that. And she said, and there was a part of me that wanted to take the risk. And she was quiet for a minute. And she said, I like the part of me that wanted to take the risk. And she said, and later, when it came time to make the decision about the divorce, she said, that was very unsettling for me. Part of me could have just stayed. And she said, it was the same part of me that said, do you know what? I'm going to take the risk of the divorce. You can see that's a character strength. That's a core part of this woman that has served her well the whole way through. There are many aspects of the marriage that she has regrets about, but you can see the ageless self there, can't you? You can see that entangled in all of those regrets are very strong character strengths that have served her well, okay? That's the kind of work that we need to be doing when we're contemplating regret. Now, so here's the thing. She didn't just arrive at that place. She didn't just arrive at that wisdom. It cost her. She suffered for it. She did the piece around, why did I get married? I should have never gotten married. Look at everything that happened in those 30 years. Look at how he hurt me and look who I became and I'm a shadow of myself. She did all of that. She engaged and negotiated with all that regret. But as a result of doing it all in the right way, she came back home. She was able to come back to something core in her. That's the kind of work we're doing.